is Andre McGregor, and the case I can't forget hasn't happened yet. I first got into computers when I was 13 years old, building computers, learning how to code, make websites. I was even be on the cover of USA Today as a technology whiz kid, which was pretty exciting at that time. I was working at my regular day job and got a phone call one day that said, "Hey, we're the FBI, we're looking for a computer engineer." I joined the FBI and I said I wanted to work bank robberies and kidnappings. I was woefully disappointed when they said, "You're going to do cybercrime." And I said, "Well, that's not where the action is." And they said, "Well, but that's where your skill set is." But I've worked things like counterterrorism that is very active, on top of being the person that has to go through the code, parse logs, and be able to identify who is the bad guy at the other end of the keyboard. The day that I got my phone call about the Bowman Dam was just a typical day for when a cyber emergency happens, which is usually Friday at 4 p.m. And I get a phone call from my counterpart at Homeland Security, and he said, "Andre, we think there's a dam that was hacked by Iran, and we think it might be in your area." President Obama has been briefed on this. He wants to know to what extent Iran is conducting attacks against our critical infrastructure. So I decided to drive up. Got to the town of Rye and looked at the dam, and I said, "This is it." So if you look at this particular water dam, it has a cellular card that was actually open and available on the internet. And then the bad guys just did what we call a brute force password attack. And they just went through all possible permutations of a password to see if they can crack it. And so, unfortunately, the password of the water dam was 666666. And we did have evidence of them executing commands to open and close and change different settings of the water dam. This case was the first time that we could knowingly point to a nation state doing a physical attack from a cyber means. Iran started hacking in 2010. They would hack a website, they'd put a burning American flag with the words "Death to America." And at the time, we didn't pay it much attention. But when they actually hacked this water dam in 2013, it shocked the entire intelligence community. Even though it was a very small dam, I was very worried about where this was going to go with Iran. Because is this the precursor to a bigger hack? Is this the 93 bombing of World Trade that leads to the bigger attack in 9/11? It was that moment where you said, okay, this is no longer just about data, you can actually cause death and destruction. And so all the three-letter agencies were interested: NSA, CIA, DHS, and the FBI. This was the cyber red line that we've talked about within the government for years. At what point does a cyber attack result in a missile downrange? And so that changed the game. When you're in the world of hackers and you sort of see the ease that it takes to get into a system, it is very scary because we don't think about all the different control systems that we use in our life. There's a lot of scenarios that can come into play. Actually, every door in the Empire State Building is controlled by a control system. Imagine if they're closed, you can't reopen them. Take an elevator and being able to control it or not control it or drop it or disengage brakes. Self-moving train, the L line in Manhattan. What happens if that train moves on its own without control? We're very highly dependent on 5G and GPS. But if we don't have positive control over those technologies, now all of a sudden we have interrupted commerce, we have crashed planes. Someone could potentially hack my car and initiate the brakes and kill me. Our lives are turned upside down. My doomsday scenario will always be connected to power plants. When you shut down the electricity in a large area, then you have entire neighborhoods, if not cities, that are completely down. Now we've so connected our lives through the internet that when these devices go down, chaos. It's going to be bedlam, riots, anarchy, because everyone is so connected to the internet, everyone's connected to their computers and their smartphones, and now people panic. At the end of the day, my biggest fear is always going to be people and people panicking, because panicking people actually is what will cause destruction and cause death. And so when you look at the security that we have today in some of our newest devices, they're completely open, which means the communication can be intercepted as well as they can be compromised. Once you get a picture of that, you realize the Bowman Dam case was the precursor to something bigger. It just hasn't happened yet. And so I'm actually happy some days when I drive my '94 Jeep Wrangler that the only piece of technology in it is my AM/FM radio, because I realize even in a bad situation, I can still drive that car.